There is a question men ask women every single day, in coffee shops, at grocery stores, in the middle of perfectly ordinary conversations. And most women answer it without thinking twice. They smile, they respond, they move on. They never realize what just happened. But here is the thing. That question was not small talk. That question was not coincidence. That question was a test. A carefully constructed, emotionally loaded, psychologically designed test. And the man who asked it already knew what your answer would tell him about you. By the time you finish watching this video, you will never hear that question the same way again. Welcome to the Heart Code. I am so glad you are here today, because what we are about to uncover is something that affects millions of women every single day, and almost none of them ever realize it is happening. We talk a lot on this channel about emotional intelligence, about reading people, about protecting your heart without closing it off. And today's topic sits right at the intersection of all of that. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. If this channel has ever helped you understand yourself better, understand men better, understand your own patterns and why you keep ending up in the same situations, please take 2 seconds right now to click that like button. It costs you nothing, but it means everything to us. Share this video with a woman in your life who deserves to know this. Subscribe to the Heart Code so you never miss another conversation like this one. And if you want to support this channel directly and help us keep creating content that actually changes lives, you can do that through Super Thanks right below this video. Every single contribution helps us reach more women who need this. Now, let us talk about what's really going on. Part 1. The invisible language of attraction. Most people think attraction is about looks. They think a man looks at a woman, finds her physically appealing, and decides to pursue her. And while physical attraction certainly exists and plays a role, the truth about how men actually decide whether to pursue a woman is far more complicated than that. Men who are emotionally intelligent, men who are experienced in relationships, men who understand what they actually want in a partner, these men are not just looking at you. They are listening to you. They are watching how you respond to ordinary things. They are paying attention to the words you choose, the stories you tell, the way your face changes when you talk about something that matters to you. And one of the primary ways that men gather this information is through questions, not grand, revealing questions, not deep philosophical inquiries that announce themselves as significant. Ordinary, everyday questions that feel like nothing more than friendly conversation. This is the invisible language of attraction. It operates beneath the surface of normal social interaction. It is happening all around you, all the time, and most women never learn to recognize it until someone finally points it out. Matthew Hussey, one of the most insightful relationship coaches working today, has spent years studying exactly this. The way men and women communicate interest, the way attraction builds or dies in the space between words, the signals that both genders send without realizing they are sending them, and the specific, particular question that men use, often unconsciously, to gauge whether a woman is someone worth pursuing more seriously. When you understand this, everything changes. Not because you will start playing games, not because you will start manipulating conversations, but because understanding is power. Understanding means you get to choose how you respond rather than simply reacting. Understanding means you stop accidentally sending messages you never intended to send. Understanding means you finally have access to a conversation that has always been happening around you. Let us start at the very beginning. Part 2. Why men test without knowing they are testing. Here is something fascinating about male psychology that most women have never been told. Men test women. But here is the part that makes it even more interesting. Most men do not know they are doing it. It is not a conscious strategy. It is not a calculated manipulation. It is something far more primal and instinctive than that. It is the brain trying to gather information about a potential partner without making itself vulnerable, without putting all its cards on the table, without risking rejection before it knows whether the risk is worth taking. Think about how uncomfortable it is to approach someone you find interesting. Think about the vulnerability involved in saying out loud to another human being, "I am attracted to you. I am interested in you. I want to know more about you." That is one of the most exposed, tender, terrifying things a person can do. And men feel that vulnerability just as intensely as women do, even when they do not show it. So the brain develops a workaround. Instead of declaring interest, it probes. It asks a question that sounds innocent, but is designed to reveal something real. It watches the response. It processes the data. And then it makes a decision about whether to move forward. This is why the question in question, the one we are building toward, is so powerful. It does not feel like anything. It feels like casual conversation. It feels like someone just making small talk. But underneath that casual surface, a very serious evaluation is taking place. And here is where it gets really important for you, because the way you answer that question, the words you choose, the energy you bring to your response, the emotional information you reveal, all of that shapes what the man across from you decides about you in those first few moments of interaction. You are being read, and you deserve to know that so you can be intentional about what story you are telling. Part 3, the question itself. So what is the question? It sounds simple, almost embarrassingly simple when you finally hear it. And when you do hear it, you might think, that cannot be it. That cannot be what all of this is about. Surely it is something more complicated than that. But that is exactly the point. The power of this particular question lies in its simplicity, in its ordinariness, in the fact that it blends so perfectly into everyday conversation that the person being asked never thinks twice about it. The question is some version of this. What do you have going on? Or, are you busy these days? Or, what does your week look like? Or more directly, what do you get up to in your time? Now, I know what you are thinking. That is just small talk. That is what people say when they are trying to fill the silence. That is not a test. That is just conversation. And you are right that it sounds like just conversation. That is exactly why it works. But underneath that ordinary surface, this question is doing something very specific. It is asking you to reveal how you feel about your own life. It is asking you to demonstrate whether you have a life that interests you. It is asking you to show, without being asked directly, what kind of energy you bring to the world. And here is what Matthew Hussey's insight makes so clear. Men are not asking this question to hear your schedule. They are not asking because they want to know what you did last Tuesday. They are asking because how you answer this question tells them something fundamental about who you are, about whether you are someone who lives with enthusiasm and direction, or someone who is waiting for life to start, about whether getting to know you better would mean entering an interesting world or filling a vacancy. This is not about being impressive. This is not about pretending you have a more exciting life than you do. This is about something much more subtle and much more important than that. This is about your relationship with your own existence. Part 4, what your answer reveals. Let us get specific. Because the difference between an answer that builds attraction and an answer that quietly kills it is not about the facts of your life. It is about the energy and the framing you bring to those facts. Imagine two women. Both of them are asked, "So what do you have going on these days?" Both of them have relatively similar lives. Neither one is a world traveler or a celebrity or someone with an extraordinary life story. They are both ordinary, real, wonderful women living ordinary, real, wonderful lives. The first woman answers like this: "Oh, not much really, just work. You know how it is? It is the same thing every day, nothing too exciting, kind of boring, honestly. How about you? The second woman answers like this. Actually, I have been really getting into something lately. I started this class a few months ago. Just something I always wanted to try, and I am completely obsessed. I am also in the middle of trying to figure out this one thing at work that has been taking up a lot of my mental space. It is frustrating, but honestly, kind of energizing too. What about you? Are you someone who likes to keep busy, or do you prefer to have more downtime? Now, both of these women answered the same question honestly. Neither one made anything up. Neither one was dishonest. But the emotional experience of talking to each of them is completely different. The first woman communicated something that, whether she intended to or not, signals a certain kind of vacancy, a passivity, a life that is waiting to be activated, a sense that she does not find her own life particularly interesting. And if she does not find her own life interesting, why would anyone else? The second woman communicated something completely different. She communicated that she is engaged with the world, that she finds things worth being excited about, that she has an interior life that is active and alive. And crucially, she turned the question back in a way that showed genuine curiosity about the person she was talking to. The facts of their lives were nearly identical. The impression each one created was worlds apart. This is what Matthew Hussey means when he talks about the power of this question. It is not a trick. It is a genuine window into how a woman relates to her own life. And that relationship, that energy a person has toward their own existence, is one of the most attractive things in the world. Part 5. The deeper psychology behind attraction and aliveness. Let us go deeper here because I think this deserves more than just a surface-level analysis. Why does aliveness attract? Why does it matter so much that you seem engaged with your own life? Why is this quality, above many others, so magnetic? The answer goes all the way back to some of the most fundamental principles of human psychology and evolutionary desire. At the deepest level, we are drawn to vitality, to signs of life, energy, and growth, to people who seem to be moving forward rather than standing still. There is a biological component to this that predates modern dating entirely. Energy and engagement signal health. They signal that a person has resources, physical and emotional, and mental resources, to invest in connection. They signal that life with this person would involve movement rather than stagnation. But there is also something more emotionally sophisticated happening here. When someone seems genuinely engaged with their own life, they do something very specific to the people around them. They make other people want to be part of that life. They create an experience of warmth and interest and possibility that draws others toward them. They become, without trying, magnetic. Contrast this with what happens when someone seems to be waiting, when their answers to questions like, "What do you have going on?" always circle back to a kind of flatness, a kind of emptiness, a kind of nothing special. That flatness, even when it is entirely unintentional, creates distance. It does not invite people in. It does not make them want to know more. It quietly suggests that there is not more to know. Now here is the part that I want you to sit with, because it is the most important thing I'm going to say in this entire video. This is not about performing happiness you do not feel. This is not about pretending your life is more exciting than it is. This is not about being someone other than who you are. This is about your actual relationship with your own life. This is about whether you have invested enough attention and intention into creating a life that you find genuinely interesting and meaningful. Because if you have not, no amount of conversation strategy is going to fix that. And if you have, the most natural, authentic version of yourself is already deeply attractive. You just might not be communicating it. Part 6. Why older women are especially vulnerable to this pattern. Now let us talk about something specific, because this video is particularly directed at women who are older, women who have been through things, women who have real life experience and real emotional depth and real wisdom, women who have survived, who have built, who have raised, who have grieved, who have grown. Why are older women, specifically, more vulnerable to missing this dynamic? Why does the statistic at the heart of this video suggest that 97% of them do not see this question for what it is? There are several reasons, and they are all rooted in real, understandable human experience. The first reason is that older women have often been taught, explicitly or implicitly, that talking about themselves is unbecoming, that self-promotion is arrogant, that a good woman puts others first, focuses on others first, asks about others first. This is a beautiful quality in many ways, but it can become a barrier in the context of attraction because it leads women to deflect questions about themselves rather than answering them with fullness and color. When a man asks, "What do you have going on?" and a woman immediately says, "Oh, nothing much. How about you?" she is not being humble. Or rather, she is being humble, but humility in this context is working against her. She is removing herself from the conversation before she has even entered it. She is telling the man that she is not worth talking about, and he is liable to believe her. The second reason is that many older women have lived through years of relationships where their lives, their interests, their enthusiasms gradually took a back seat, where the partnership became the center and the individual woman slowly receded, where what she had going on became less important than what the family had going on, or what the relationship needed, or what her partner was focused on. After years of this, some women genuinely lose touch with what they have going on, not because nothing is happening in their lives, but because they have stopped paying attention to it. They have stopped narrating it to themselves as interesting or valuable. They have stopped seeing their own daily life as something worth talking about with color and enthusiasm. And when a man asks that question, they reach for something to say and find themselves surprisingly empty-handed. Not because their life is empty, but because they have not been practicing the art of finding and communicating their own aliveness. So the third reason is something more specific to the experience of women who have been hurt. Women who have been through difficult relationships, disappointments, betrayals. Women who learned, sometimes painfully, that being too open or too enthusiastic can make you vulnerable. That showing someone your full, alive, enthusiastic self and then having that self dismissed or rejected is one of the most painful experiences imaginable. So they learn to protect themselves by staying small in conversation, by not investing too much emotional energy in the early stages of connection, by holding back, keeping things brief, not giving too much away. And while this is understandable, it has a cost, because the protective flatness also screens out the good men. The men who would have found that aliveness irresistible if they had only been allowed to see it. Part 7. The difference between interesting and impressive. I want to make a distinction here that I think is crucial, because I worry that some of what I have said so far might have been heard in the wrong way. When I talk about communicating aliveness, when I talk about showing that you have a full and engaged life, I am not talking about being impressive. I am not talking about having a resume of achievements or adventures that you perform for men so they will find you worth pursuing. That is exhausting, and it is also not what actually attracts the kind of man you want. Impressive and interesting are two very different things, and they create two very different dynamics. Impressive is a performance. It is a list of accomplishments and activities designed to signal value. It often has a slight anxiety underneath it, a sense of trying to prove something. And while it can create a certain kind of admiration, it does not create warmth. It does not create intimacy. It does not make a person feel that knowing you better would be a genuine joy. Interesting is completely different. Interesting is what happens when someone is genuinely engaged with something and lets that genuine engagement show. Interesting is the specific way a person's voice changes when they talk about something they actually care about. Interesting is the unexpected detail, the personal story, the question that nobody else would have thought to ask. Interesting is not performed. Interesting is revealed. And this is the key. The question that men ask, "What do you have going on?" is not probing for impressive. It is probing for interesting. It is listening for that slight change in energy that says, "This woman is alive to her own experience." It is watching for the specific details that only come when someone is actually paying attention to their own life. It is feeling for the warmth that radiates when someone genuinely loves something, or genuinely wrestles with something, or genuinely finds their own existence worth paying attention to. So when I say you need to communicate your aliveness, what I am actually saying is this: you need to pay enough attention to your own life that you have things to say about it that are real, not performed, not curated for maximum impression, real, specific, yours, that class you started, that book that changed something in you, that project at work that is driving you crazy but that you secretly love, that friendship that means everything to you, that small ritual you built into your mornings that makes the whole day feel different, that thing you have been thinking about trying but have not committed to yet. These are not impressive things, but they are deeply, powerfully interesting things, and the right man will feel that immediately. Part 8. How men decode your answer in real time. Let us talk about what is actually happening in a man's mind in the moments after he asks that question and receives your answer, because understanding this process is what will help you grasp why the quality of your answer matters so much more than the content. When a man asks, "What do you have going on?" and you begin to answer, he is running a very fast, mostly unconscious analysis. He is not listening to your words the way you would listen to a lecture. He is listening to your energy. He is feeling for the temperature of your engagement with life. The first thing he notices is your effect. Are you flat or are you alive? Does your face and your voice carry any real feeling, or does the answer arrive in the monotone of someone talking about something they find mildly boring? This registers immediately, and it registers powerfully. The second thing he notices is specificity. Vague answers, nothing much. The usual same old, same old. These create a sense of emptiness. There is nowhere to go with them. They do not invite follow-up questions. They do not create connection points. They suggest that either nothing interesting is happening in your life, or more damagingly, that you have not been paying enough attention to find it interesting. Specific answers are completely different. When you mention that you have been taking a painting class and that you are terrible at it, but completely addicted to it anyway, you have just given him a dozen things he could ask you about. You have given him a window. You have given him an invitation to step closer and find out more. The third thing he is registering, and this one is the most primal of all, is whether your life has room in it for someone new. Not in a desperate way, not in an "I am waiting for someone to complete me" way, but in the generous, open way of someone who is full enough to share. When a woman's answer communicates that she is busy and engaged and invested in her own life, it actually creates more attraction, not less. Because it communicates that she has chosen to make space in a full life for the possibility of connection. That is a gift. That is meaningful. That is appealing in a way that availability born of emptiness never is. Part 9. The follow-up and why it matters as much as the answer. There is one more dimension to this that Matthew Hussey emphasizes strongly, and it is something that most women overlook entirely. What you do after you answer the question matters just as much as the answer itself. Because the pattern that he identifies in women who are highly successful at creating genuine connection is this: they answer and then they ask. But they do not just ask anything. They ask something that reveals genuine curiosity, something that invites a real response rather than a surface-level one. The question is not, "How about you?" Those three words are so reflexive, so automatic, that they carry almost no real weight. They sound like politeness rather than genuine interest. The question that creates real connection is something more specific, something that says, "I actually heard what you were communicating, and I want to know more about the real you." So if a man asks you what you have going on, and you answer with your class and your project, and you're wrestling with that work thing, and then you turn it back to him, you might say something like, "I am curious, are you someone who needs a lot of variety in your life to feel engaged? Or do you prefer going really deep on just a few things? Or do you find it easy to get excited about things? Or does it take a while for something to really capture your attention?" Or even something simpler, what is taking up most of your mental real estate right now? These questions do something that "How about you" never does. They tell him that you are interested in understanding him, not just exchanging social niceties. They signal that you are someone who thinks in interesting ways, because your questions reveal how you think, and they create the conditions for a real conversation, rather than two people taking turns reciting facts about themselves. This combination, a genuine answer that reveals your aliveness, followed by a genuine question that reveals your curiosity, is one of the most powerful tools for connection that exists. And it requires nothing fake, nothing manipulated, nothing performed. It just requires you to be fully present and genuinely interested. So part 10, rebuilding your relationship with your own life. I want to spend some time on something that might be the most practically useful thing in this entire video, because understanding all of this intellectually is one thing. Being able to actually do it is another. And the truth is that for many women, the barrier is not conversation strategy. The barrier is that they have genuinely lost touch with their own aliveness, not because they are not alive, but because the day-to-day pressure of living, the responsibilities and the busyness and the routines and the things they have pushed aside and the things they have put off and the dreams they have quietly stopped talking about, all of that can slowly drain the color out of a person's relationship with their own life. When someone asks, "What do you have going on?" and you come up empty, that emptiness is information, important information, not about whether you are attractive or interesting or valuable, but about whether you have been investing enough attention and intention into your own inner world. So here is the question I want you to sit with. Not what could you say to make yourself sound more interesting to a man, but what do you actually find genuinely interesting right now? Is there something you have been wanting to try? A class, a skill, a hobby, a creative pursuit? Something you have said, "I should do that someday," for so long that someday has started to feel like never? Is there a book you have been meaning to read? An idea that has been nagging at you? A conversation you have been wanting to have with someone about something that actually matters? Is there something in your work or your community or your relationships that you care about deeply, that you have been contributing to quietly, but that you have never really let yourself talk about with enthusiasm because it seemed like too much or too self-focused or not important enough? Because here is what I know. Every single woman reading these words has something, has a world inside her that is rich and specific and worth knowing, has opinions and experiences and perspectives that are interesting, has a life that, when seen clearly, has real color in it. The work is not to fabricate that richness. The work is to reconnect with it, to give yourself permission to find your own life interesting again, to start paying attention again, to start narrating your own experience to yourself as something worth paying attention to. And because when you do that, when you genuinely reclaim your relationship with your own aliveness, it shows. Not because you have learned to perform better, but because the real thing cannot be hidden. Part 11. The Trap of Playing It Cool. There is one more pattern that Matthew Hussey identifies that I want to address specifically, because it is something I see so often in women who are intelligent, aware, and emotionally sophisticated. Playing it cool. You know what I'm talking about, the studied nonchalance, the carefully managed indifference, the sense that showing enthusiasm or genuine interest or real excitement is somehow embarrassing or dangerous or gives away too much. Playing it cool is seductive as a strategy because it feels like protection. If I do not seem too interested, I will not seem too vulnerable. Now, if I do not show him how much I enjoyed talking to him, he will not have the power to hurt me. If I keep things casual and light and non-committal, I am in control. But here is what playing it cool actually communicates from the outside. It communicates disinterest. It communicates flatness. It communicates that you are not particularly engaged with the conversation or the person or anything happening in the room. It creates the impression that you are either not interested or not particularly alive to your own experience. And the cruel irony is that the women who play it cool the most effectively are often the women who are the most interested, the most engaged, the most alive underneath the surface. They are protecting a real depth of feeling with a performance of casual indifference. The men who are worth having are not fooled by this. And more importantly, the men who are not worth having will take the performance at face value and move on. Which means playing it cool is primarily effective at screening out the people who might have been right for you. The alternative is not to be desperate or to wear your heart on your sleeve. In a way that removes all mystery, the alternative is to be warmly present, to let your genuine interest show with a certain ease and elegance, to be the kind of woman who is clearly engaged with the world and with the people in it, without being clingy or anxious or overwhelming. That combination, genuine aliveness, genuine curiosity, genuine warmth, held with a certain confidence and ease, is one of the most attractive things a person can embody. And it is not a strategy. It is just who you actually are when you stop trying so hard to protect yourself. Part 12. What makes mature women uniquely powerful in this dynamic? I want to end this particular section of our conversation by saying something that I mean with every word. Older women, mature women, women who have lived, have something that younger women simply do not have yet. And that something is exactly what makes you, right now, in this season of your life, uniquely powerful in the context of attraction and connection. You have depth, you have real stories, you have survived real things and come out with real wisdom. You have opinions that have been tested by experience rather than just formed by theory. You have a relationship with yourself that has been built over decades rather than assembled in a hurry. When a man asks, "What do you have going on?" and you answer from that place, from that depth, from that genuine richness of a life actually lived, there is nothing in the world that competes with it. The problem is never that you do not have enough. The problem is almost always that you have stopped believing that what you have is interesting. You have stopped letting yourself be the full, complicated, alive, imperfect, gorgeous person that you actually are. And when you step back into that, when you reclaim that, when you decide that your life is worth talking about with color and enthusiasm and genuine investment, something shifts, not just in how men respond to you, though they will, but in how you feel about yourself, in how you move through the world, in the energy you bring to every interaction. That is the real gift at the center of this conversation. Not a strategy for attracting men, but a permission to be fully alive in your own story. Part 13. Putting it all together. The practical guide. let us bring all of this together in a practical way, because understanding is important, but doing is what actually changes things. Here is what this looks like in real life. The next time a man asks you, "What do you have going on?" or "What do you get up to?" or "Are you busy these days?" here is the process I want you to use. First, pause for just a moment before you answer, not awkwardly, just a genuine, comfortable pause that says, "I am actually thinking about this," rather than automatically deflecting. That pause itself communicates something. It communicates that you take the question seriously, that your life is worth a considered answer. Second, answer with something specific, not a list of accomplishments, not a performance of busyness, but one or two real specific things that you are genuinely engaged with right now. It does not have to be extraordinary. It just has to be real and specific. If you have been reading a really good book, say that. If you have been dealing with something at work that is challenging you, say that and add one specific detail about why it is challenging or interesting. If you have been thinking about trying something new, you can even say that. The fact that you are considering something new communicates forward motion. It communicates that your life is in progress rather than concluded. Third, add a small dose of genuine feeling to your answer. Not performed feeling, genuine feeling. Let the slight excitement of what you are excited about actually come through. Let the genuine complexity of what you are wrestling with be present in your voice. Do not edit the real emotional texture out of your answer in an attempt to seem cool or unimpressed with your own life. Fourth, turn it back to him with a real question, not "How about you?" reflexively, but something that shows you were actually listening to him as a person, rather than just waiting for your turn to talk. Something that invites him into a real conversation, rather than just an exchange. Fifth, and this is perhaps the most important one, do all of this from a place of genuine interest, rather than from an anxiety about whether he finds you attractive. When you are focused on whether he likes you, your attention is on yourself and on his reaction. And that creates a kind of anxious energy that is very difficult to hide. When you are genuinely curious about him as a person, your attention is on him, and that creates warmth and ease and genuine connection. The paradox is that when you stop trying to make him find you attractive and start simply trying to connect with him as a fellow human being, you become far more attractive. Part 14. The bigger picture. I want to zoom out here and look at the bigger picture because I think this conversation is about something much larger than a single question men ask. What we have been talking about, at its core, is how to live in a way that keeps you genuinely engaged with your own existence. How to maintain that sense of aliveness and interest and forward motion that is not just attractive to other people, but that is the foundation of a good life for you. Because here is the thing. The women who answer this question best are not the women who have been coached on how to answer it. They are the women who have built lives that they genuinely find interesting, who have stayed curious, who have kept trying new things even when it was uncomfortable or seemed frivolous or felt self-indulgent, who have maintained their friendships and their interests and their intellectual life even when the busyness of everyday existence made it tempting to let those things go. Those women are not just more attractive to men, they are happier. They have richer inner worlds. They have more to offer everyone in their lives. Not just romantic partners, they have maintained a relationship with themselves that sustains them even in the seasons when romantic love is not present. So if you want to work on this, the work is not practice conversations. The work is your actual life. What are you doing to keep yourself genuinely alive and interested and engaged? What have you been putting off because it seemed selfish or impractical, or because there just never seemed to be a right time? What would you want to have going on if someone asked you that question 3 months from now? Start there, not because it will make you more attractive, though it will, but because you deserve to have a life that lights you up from the inside. Part 15, when this question appears in different contexts. Now, I want to talk about how this question and the dynamic around it shows up in different contexts, because it is not only the first time you meet someone. This pattern appears throughout the entire arc of early attraction and connection. It appears in text conversations. When a man texts you, "How was your day?" or "What did you get up to today?" the same dynamic is at play. The answer, "not much" or "fine" or "just the usual," is doing the same work as the flat answer in person. It is signaling that nothing interesting is happening, that there is not much to connect with, that getting to know you more would not mean entering a more interesting world. The alternative is not to write a novel every time someone texts you. It is to share one specific, real thing from your day that carries some genuine feeling. It might be funny, it might be frustrating, it might be small but oddly beautiful. Whatever it is, it should be specific and real, something that could not have been said by just anyone, something that is distinctly you. This question also appears in later stages of dating and relationships. When a long-term partner asks, "How was your day?" the same dynamic exists, though the stakes are different. Couples who maintain genuine curiosity about each other's daily inner world, couples who keep finding each other interesting, are couples that last. Couples who stop asking or stop answering with anything real are couples who slowly become strangers in the same house. And it appears in your broader social life. The people who find you interesting, who want to spend time with you, who feel better after talking to you, are responding to the same quality of aliveness and engagement that men are responding to when they ask this question. This is not a dating skill. This is a life skill. Part 16, the role of confidence in all of this. Let me talk about something that threads through every part of this conversation: confidence, because without it, none of the advice I have offered here will land the way it needs to. When I say answer with something specific and real, that requires a certain confidence. Specifically, it requires the confidence to believe that your specific, real experience is worth sharing. That the class you are taking, the book you are reading, the thing you are wrestling with matters. That it is interesting. That someone else could find it worth knowing about. Many women have been implicitly taught that their inner world is not worth that much attention. That the interesting people are the ones with bigger lives, more exciting jobs, more impressive stories, that their own small daily life is not worth talking about with any particular enthusiasm. This is simply not true. And believing it is not true is the foundational act of confidence that makes all of this work. The most compelling thing you can do in early conversation is not to tell impressive stories. It is to talk about ordinary things with genuine specificity and feeling. Because that is what tells the person across from you that you are someone who finds meaning and interest in life, rather than waiting for life to deliver meaning and interest to you. That is confidence, not the bravado of someone who tells you about all their achievements, but the quiet, grounded confidence of someone who finds their own experience worth taking seriously. And here is the thing about that kind of confidence. It is built, not inherited. It grows every time you decide that your inner life is worth paying attention to. Every time you try something new and find yourself genuinely engaged with it. Every time you have a conversation where you allow yourself to be fully present and genuinely interesting rather than performing or deflecting. You build it by living the way we have been describing, not as a strategy, but as a genuine commitment to your own aliveness. Part 17, recognizing the question in all its forms. I want to spend a moment making sure you can recognize this question in all its different forms because it does not always sound the same way. Sometimes it is very direct. So, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do with your free time? Sometimes it is softer. Do you live around here? Have you been here before? What do you think of this place? Sometimes it is wrapped in small talk about the shared environment. Are you here for something specific? Do you come to these kinds of events a lot? And sometimes it is even more indirect. How has your week been? Do you have a busy schedule these days? All of these questions are doing the same thing. They are all opening a window into who you are. They are all invitations to reveal something real about yourself. They are all chances to communicate in a completely natural way that you are someone with a full and interesting inner world. So do not wait for the exact wording we talked about earlier. Train yourself to hear any of these questions as the same fundamental invitation. What they are all saying underneath the small talk surface is, tell me something real about who you are. Tell me what your life feels like from the inside. Tell me whether knowing you better would be worth my time. And your answer, always, should be some version of yes, not in those words, but in the specificity and the warmth and the genuine engagement that you bring to everything you say. Part 18, the gift of being truly seen. I want to close this main body of the video with something that I think is at the heart of all of this, what every human being wants. Underneath all the strategy and all the psychology and all the attraction dynamics is to be truly seen, to be known, to have someone look at them with genuine attention and genuine curiosity and genuine warmth and say, you are interesting, you are worth knowing, I want to understand you better. That experience of being truly seen is one of the most profound and transformative things one human being can offer another. And it begins, so often, in those early moments of conversation. In the quality of your answers to ordinary questions. In the quality of your questions in return. When you answer that question, what do you have going on, with real specificity and real feeling, you are giving the person across from you a gift. You are giving them access to the real you. You are offering them the experience of actually connecting with a genuine human being, rather than just exchanging social pleasantries with a polished surface. And when you follow up with a real question, a question that invites them to be real in return, you are giving them something even more valuable. You are giving them the experience of being genuinely asked, of having someone treat their inner world as worth understanding. That exchange, that moment of genuine mutual curiosity and real presence is where attraction lives. Not in strategy, not in playing it cool, not in performing the most appealing version of yourself. In genuine human presence, in the willingness to be seen and to see. That is what this question opens up when you know what it is and how to meet it. That is the conversation beneath the conversation. And now that you know it is happening, you can choose to show up for it fully. And that is where we are going to land today. Because I want you to really let this settle in. Not just the tactics, not just the specific advice about how to answer a particular question, but the larger invitation that sits at the center of this conversation. The invitation to take your own aliveness seriously, to pay attention to your own inner world, to invest in the things that make you genuinely you, to show up in every conversation, in every interaction, with real presence and real curiosity and real warmth. Not because it will attract better men, though it will, but because you deserve to live that way. You deserve to have a relationship with your own life that you find genuinely interesting and worth talking about. You deserve to walk into every room as someone who is fully present rather than carefully managed. If something in this video resonated with you, I want you to do something right now. Leave a comment below this video. Tell me what the most important thing was that you took from this conversation. Tell me about the thing in your life that you are genuinely excited about, even if it is small. Tell me what you have going on, because I am genuinely asking. I am genuinely curious, and I know that somewhere in your answer, there is something real and interesting and worth sharing. If this video added value to your day, if it gave you even one thing to think about differently, please click that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it genuinely helps this channel reach more women who need these conversations. Share this video. Send it to a friend, a sister, a daughter, anyone in your life who is navigating the world of connection and attraction and trying to understand the invisible language that shapes everything. This is the kind of conversation that changes things when it reaches the right person. Subscribe to the Heart Code if you have not already. This is where we come to think about relationships honestly, to understand ourselves and the people we love more deeply, and to navigate the complexities of human connection with intelligence and heart. And if this channel has been meaningful to you, if you come back here regularly, if these conversations feel like something worth investing in, you can support the Heart Code through Super Thanks right below this video. That support goes directly into creating more content, more depth, more conversations like this one. This is the Heart Code. And today, more than anything, I want you to remember this. You are not too much. You are not too ordinary. You are not too late. You are not someone whose life is too small to be interesting. You are a woman with depth and story and experience and wisdom and an inner world that is rich and real and worth knowing. Go out and live like you believe that. Answer questions like you believe that. Ask questions like you believe that other people's inner worlds are worth knowing too. Because love, real love, connection that sustains, it starts exactly there, in the ordinary moment when someone asks a simple question and you answer it like your life is worth talking about. Because it is. I will see you in the next one.